Mhm.
Staffing or in the Bangalore, we don't perfectly change the nodes.
Mhm.
And currently I'm trying to do some analysis with some large data. I learned about the Hawking research, so I was hoping to do this or when get something done.
Oh, great. Wow, what kind of data are you working with?
It's like sheet imaging, so
Mhm.
image a whole brain, kind of like an MRI,
Right.
and we're counting neurons in this timeline.
I see.
Machine learning because maybe like 5 neurons, we don't get anything.
No,
So
that's very cool. Yeah.
this area of electricity and of the bio. We have some twenty programs going on, image.
Mhm.
So, program
Great. Yeah.
My name is Julia. I am in Jersey undergraduate. I'm currently a file log containing stem cells for skeletal muscle reserve. But I'm taking this class mostly because I'm also taking a class for like computational biology stuff, and I think it's just an assistant.
Great. Mhm. Yeah.
I'm familiar.
Right. Have you used Hoffman before? Okay. Over here.
When I was being a curious case, I did it with the I went I mean sequencing.
Oh, I see. But the, I see. But are you familiar with Unix?
No, some
Okay. Great. Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to see a graduate student that I have with the government. I'm taking this class because in terms of I feel like I think it's myself, so I get seven different
Right.
that thing. Because the role of that is provided all the
Well, great. Yeah.
I only take the drag. Release. Time, so it takes it's going down.
Mhm. Oh, great. Okay, great. Yeah, so sounds like a lot of you are doing this for research, starting to use a large amount of data, maybe some software. Um, Before we get into the material, I wanted to go over the agenda for this workshop. It's split, as you know, it's 3 days. Today on day one, we're going to do some of the basics of the command line, which is navigating, creating files, moving across directories, listing files, and so on. On day two, we're gonna do something more advanced. These are more on the shell scripting part. So within the command line, there is a programming language that we can use to do some quick analysis, some quick parsing of files that turns out to be really useful and powerful. So that includes functions like all, clear, exit, and so on. And on the third day, we're going to do more shell scripting and running jobs on Hoffman 2. So for this workshop, my understanding is that all of you have a Hoffman 2 account. Is that the case? Everyone? Okay, great. So as you know, Hoffman is a computing cluster at UCLA, and we're going to learn how to write a script and then request resources from Hoffman so that you can run the script. Um, a lot of times this analysis, just because of the size of the data set or just because the amount of computing time that you need, you can't really run it on your own computer. So that's where Hoffman comes in. Some more notes about this workshop. We're gonna see some lines, some command lines here on the slides that will start with this symbol, like the hello world over here. Links are underlined, and we have this symbol for any practice or in-class activity that we'll do. Okay. I also sent an email yesterday about preparation. So since all of you have a Hoffman account, we can skip these first slides. Did all of you get it through your research group, or did any of you have to request like an outside sponsor or something? Yeah? Okay, everyone? Okay, great. And the other thing is, because this is a Unix class, you need the Unix operating system. From the roster that I got, there were a few of you that needed to use the computers here. Is that still the case? Does any of you need the computers? No? Okay. Do all of you have MacBooks or Mac operating system? All of you? Okay. Okay, that makes things easier. Yeah. So we can skip all of this. So the first exercise we'll do, fairly straightforward, locate the terminal on your computers. Now, I can show you very quick how to do that. Okay, so for MacBook, you can just go to your Launchpad, and here in search, just type terminal. Oops. Oh. I'm gonna stop sharing for a bit. Something's going on with my key. Mhm. So on your Launchpad, you can just type terminal, and you should see it here. Now, for this workshop, since we're going to be using it, you can just embed it here, so you can have direct access to it. Okay. Are we all on the terminal? Great. Um, yeah, so one more thing. I shared a Google folder yesterday. The Google folder had the slides for today, and it also has a Google Doc where you can type in questions or comments about the workshop. Of course, if you have any question here, you can ask it on the spot. But if you have something that maybe I didn't cover during the class time or something that you would like me to clarify further, you can type it there. Yes. Oh, really? Let's see. Um, Wait, some of you have access to the doc, right? No, none of you? Oh, okay. Let me just. Hmm. I'm gonna resend the link. Yeah, thing is that because some email addresses are not UCLA, sometimes it um anyone who has a link can access, no sign-in required.
So,
Mm-hmm.
computing really good.
Oh, got it. Okay, there we go. Good, thanks. Okay. And we also have a book here that you can use for your reference. But of course, other than this, there is plenty of online resources that you can look into. Um, so let's get started. Here we have some more notes for that Eloy already sort of went over. We're going to have 3-hour sessions, 45 to 50 minutes with a 10-minute break. And this is once again the overview on the topics that we're going to be covering. So what is Unix or Linux? We're going to start with some theory on this. Does anybody know the difference between Unix and Linux? Or are they the same thing? So Linux is a Unix-based operating system. It's called Linux because I think the guy that created it was called like Linus something. But the umbrella term would be Unix. Let me just So the umbrella term is called Unix, a multitasking, multi-user family, computer operating family created in the 1970s. Unix originally, when it was created, it was not open source, but then the later Linux is now an open source operating system. Now, what does it mean to be open source? It means that the code of the operating system is publicly available, so anybody can see how it operates, and anybody can also contribute. So in theory, if there is something about Unix that you don't like, you can modify, write a piece of code that you think would fit better, submit it, and then, of course, the developers, they would test it and see how well it integrates with the rest of the system, and they could update it based on that. Or if they don't do that, you can branch out and create your own operating system that has a function that you like. So that's what it means to be open source. And of course, it has advantages that it's secure. There is a lot of people working on it to make sure that you can easily infiltrate or hack into files. It has a very efficient set of permissions and accesses. But most importantly, is flexible and programmer friendly. So what that means is that once you go into the operating system, it's very easy on the operating system and develop your own piece of script that will run some function that you want. Maybe you want to automate something. You can easily do it from a Unix operating system. Now, computers like Windows, for example, they have their own operating system with their own language, their own environment. But those are not really designed to be this open source, to be this flexible. And a lot of times they don't have all the functions or all the syntax that you need for you to develop your own piece of code. So in that sense, whenever you log into AWS or GCP, the Google Cloud platform, or any of these other servers, most of the time you're going to be using a Linux machine because that's what most developers use nowadays. Now, when we talk about supercomputers or computer clusters like Hoffman 2, Once again, this is the language of preference. This is the operating system of preference, which is Unix. Here in this diagram, you can sort of see the popularity of Linux-based machines over time, overtaking all operating systems. And this is sort of what I was referring to before when I make it a little bigger. Because it's open source and because anybody can make contributions, you have all these families of Unix operating systems that over time they branch out, and then you have different sub-Unix families. So for example, Hoffman 2 run on CentOS. CentOS is this branch over here that derives from Red Hat. Red Hat that doesn't directly derive, but has some influence from these other languages over here, SUSE. Ubuntu, which is sort of the most, if we say like public-friendly operating system, but it's still pretty niche. Definitely not as popular as Windows or Mac OS. But this is more developed to be more user-friendly and more interface-friendly. Now, since most of us are doing research or work in the biomedical sciences or biological sciences, one of the reasons why we'll prefer to do this work over Unix or Linux is because biological data has been increasing exponentially. Here we have this where the cost of sequencing a human genome. And as you know, the Human Genome Project was completed in 2003 or so. And it costs like something like $1 billion. Well, here I can see clearly, but maybe like several billions of dollars to sequence the first human genome. And as we see over time, this price has been decreasing exponentially. Nowadays, there are platforms that will sequence it for $200, $300. And they can sequence like multiple human genomes per day. Whereas the first time people have done it, it took like close to, I believe it was more than 10 years to sequence the first human genome. So this is just an example of how fast data gets generated nowadays. And something that's interesting that I see happening at UCLA is that also labs that are traditionally very experimental, they are switching all towards doing more and more computational work because now they can generate a lot of data and they have all this data stored and they don't know how to process it or how to make sense of it. So they're all computational biosciences is becoming more and more relevant in general. Here we have more examples of pretty much the cost of sequencing as well. Or the ability to sequence different samples or different cells that also increases exponentially. This is just to make the point that as we generate more and more data, there is a higher need for people with skills in programming and data science. And of course, with this workshop, we hope you get the skills to do this analysis, or in other words, to make the computer work for you. We typically say that this work is repetitive because a lot of the tasks that you learn to do are fairly simple or fairly straightforward, with the only catch that you have to repeat it millions of times. So that's what we're trying to avoid, keep you from doing. And some of you may already be familiar with this. When we talk about the command line, we're talking about the terminal. So this is what is usually referred as CLI or CLI or command line interface, which is where you type all the code on the terminal. So input, output, and everything can be done from the keyboard. So when you're working with a command line, as people say, you don't need to use your mouse anymore. because everything is typed out. And of course, this is a difference compared to the interfaces that we're all used to with Mac OS or with Windows, where the main difference here is that everything is more visual. You can select an icon, you can select a program, and this program does something for you. But then if you don't have a program that does the task that you're looking for, you either have to go and install it. Whether on the other hand, for when you're using the command line, it's completely up to you to develop the program and do whatever you want it to do to get done. Okay. And some more differences between the command line and the graphical interface. Like I mentioned, this is more visual. And for the command line, you'll need some degree of memorization. But on the command line, you have more control over the file system. You have more freedom over the resources that you have available within your computer or the cluster. Speed, yeah, the keyboard is utilized, whereas for interface, in terms of speed also, a lot of these programs that you download, they are optimized to do a specific function. They may not always be the most efficient way to do something. It's just a program that was developed by somebody or some group. But when you're running your own command, you're also free to look into these programs and see if you yourself can optimize them and then come up with your own version to make it more speedy or more efficient at doing something. And another very important point is that, especially if you're a Windows user, you completely rely on how they're going to update the next versions of the operating systems. And you have to get used to every version. Whereas the command line pretty much has stayed the same since the 70s or so. So you don't have to worry too much about updates. And a little bit more on our Hoffman 2 clusters. We have over 1,300 nodes, 20,000 cores. Now, this terminology sometimes also gets a little confusing. Who knows what's the difference between a computer, a core, a node, or a thread? Like, are these four words the same? Is one a class or the other? Any ideas? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So in a way, a core, you can think of a core as a computer. And yeah, that's an important point about Hoffman that we're gonna mention later. But in Hoffman, we have computing nodes and logging nodes. Computing nodes that do the work, and logging, which is for you just to log in and maybe take a look at your files and so on. So that's a core. You can think of a core as a computer, a computational unit. Now, what's a thread? A thread is more abstract. It's more of a pure computational term. Is when you write some code, you can think of the code executing linearly as a thread of paper or a thread of commands, like do step 1, step 2, step 3. And this thread is what goes through the computer nodes, and every node performs a thread. So when we talk about multi-threading processes, so those are like different tasks that are performed in parallel. So you can think of those as multiple threads running through the nodes at the same time. So core, more like a computer. A node, more like the unit within the computer that does the work. And the thread, more like the linear set of instructions that is your code. We have over 50 terabytes aggregated memory. This also depends a lot on the kind of program, the kind of account that you have. So if you have your Hoffman account through your research group, you probably have quite a bit of storage in there. You can probably store up to a certain number of like 100, 200 terabytes, depending on the account. If you have like a temporary or visiting account on Hoffman, I think you only have like 10 gigabytes to play with. But all of you have your account through your research group, correct? Okay, so I think storage will not be an issue for any of us. Okay, so now, since none of us have Windows, we can skip on this. We can go, the first thing we're gonna do is log in to our Hoffman account. So please go back to the terminal. Is anybody seeing the terminal for the first time? Okay. Yeah. So for those of you that are not super familiar with this, the terminal, you can think of it as your canvas where you can start typing any code that you want to perform. You'll always see your username over here, followed by @ and then the next part, in my case, it says Giovanni's MacBook Pro. For some of you, it may say something different. So if the name of your machine is something else, or sometimes it shows the name of the Wi-Fi network that you're connected to. So this is more like the domain where you're pretty much performing all these operations. But in either case, it won't make a difference. Like whatever you type here is gonna get run by your computer. And over here, in my case, it says base. Does it say base for anybody else? No? Okay. These are just formatting details. In my case, this base indicates the environment that I'm running in. We're gonna talk a bit more about what environments are, but the way you can think of an environment is sometimes I want my computer to read files from this directory because, say, right now I'm working on biological data. And I have these directories where I have all my biology related libraries. So I'm going to load the environment that is related to that directory. I may create another environment that is for my academic tasks. And that has more, I don't know, maybe like writing related libraries or engine search or things like that. So an environment you can think of it as a different workspace. Now, when this says base, this just means that your base environment that your computer already comes with. That means all the basic functions that you need to run basic commands. Okay, so the first thing we're gonna do is log in into Hoffman. Now, to log in, we use the SSH command. Okay. SSH followed by your username at hoffman2.idr.ucla.edu. Cool. Now you press enter and it's gonna ask you for your password. And you should be logged in. So once again, SSH space followed by your username at hoffman2.idr.ucla.edu. Okay. Let's do a quick show of hands if you are logged in. Okay. Okay. Yep. Yeah. So whenever you type your password, it's not gonna show like everything else. Let me show you again. So SSH Java's Hotman 2 IDR. So when you press enter, see this key symbol? This means that you'll type, but it won't show but what you're typing. So you just have to make sure you type it correctly. Like, yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
I think it's fine. Like I thought it was like pretty acceptable, we should do this, I just want to.
Right. Yeah, so it's definitely something to do with your username. Are you connected to this Wi-Fi? So Elon mentioned that the Wi-Fi name is Collaboratory 8T and password is 611 whole. Now that shouldn't make a difference really, but sometimes some networks have like weird permissions, weird like security features in it. So you may have trouble logging in some networks, but for most of them, you should be fine, especially for most UCLA networks. Mm. Okay. Yeah. Also make sure your username is right. So, let me see. So when you created your Hoffman account, you should have received an email with your username. That is your, most of the time is also your email username. Yeah. So when you type your username, so make sure you're not mixing uppercase with lowercase. Um, so make sure you have the space, just make sure you get the syntax right. Hoffman to ideal. Is everybody logged in? Please show up hand. Okay. No? You're having an issue? Authenticity of the host. Are you on this network?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you maybe misspell the domain name? Oh, can you repeat it? That's like the SSH key is to there's a way to save your password so you don't have to type it in. So have you tried doing that before? Maybe it might be a password then. I don't know if they're going to ask you. Or I never ask you. How many of you are getting like an authenticity issue when you log in? No one? Okay. Right. And then it works. Oh, yeah. I see. Do you not get that? Okay. Yeah. There might be something about logging in for the first time as well. Works? Yeah. Works for everyone? Oh. Right. Do they give you like a temporary password and then they ask you to change it? Something like that? Oh, okay. Okay. You should have IDRE in it.
Just searching on Python too, and then I clicked on like register just like search on video and then like requesting an account, and if I register, then that should bring me to the actual account. Yeah, I'm not doing like on the register, and I'm no problem like them. Like this one, right? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So now we're gonna go over the slides with some information about the login page of Hoffman. And then we're gonna take a break in like 5 minutes. So you can also take that time to try to log in. Okay. You got it? Okay, great. Okay, so when you log in, you should see this message. Welcome to Hoffman 2 cluster, Hoffman page. This has a support page where you can submit any issues that you have. Now, this is the message that somebody brought up before. Please do not compute on the logging nodes. So this is what we mentioned, that Hoffman has computing nodes and logging nodes. When you first log in, you'll be directly connected to a logging node. So you should have something like your username at login something, in my case, Ford. Now, what this means is that this is just for you to connect to the cluster, but not to actually perform any computation. And the reason for this is because the logging nodes, these are computers that are not that powerful, that don't have as many resources. So if you were to run something here, some command, then it will run, it will work, but then you are disrupting service for all the other users that are connected to the same logging node. So that's why it tells you not to do that. Now for this workshop, what we're doing are very simple commands. They don't take much memory or time. So it's not going to be disruptive for other users. Later on day 3, when we learn how to submit jobs, we're going to see how to request an interactive node. So that's another name for the computing nodes. And these are the nodes where you can run anything that you want. But for now, we're sticking to the logging nodes. Yeah, as you can see, running on the logging nodes seriously degrades others' use of the system, blah, blah, blah. This is how you request the interactive or computing node. Now, of course, with Huffman, for this workshop, we're sticking to the command line. But just for your references, there are other resources that you can, other ways that you can use Huffman. So another example is using Jupyter Notebooks. So Jupyter Notebooks are an interactive way of writing code. So you actually have a nice interface where you can write your code and you can see the output. So you can make, for example, graphs and figures, and you can see how they come out. And this notebook is directly connected to Huffman. So you have all the advantages of having a nice interface and also having the computer resources. If time allows, I'll give you a very short example of how to run Jupyter Notebooks by the 3rd day. But yeah, this is just another feature of Huffman too. So just so you know, you don't have to stick always to the command line. Let's see, Anaconda initialization virtual desktop. Anaconda is software that allows you to create environments. So do any of you see this base at the beginning of your username? No? Okay. Yeah, it may not always show up. It does show up does it show in color for you guys? Probably not either, right? Yeah, so these are things you can change. I made my command line look a little better, but this just indicates the environment that you are logged in. So just the same way that in your computer, you're by default on your base environment, on Huffman, you're also on your base environment. And like I mentioned before, base just means you have access to the most basic functions. And if you need a more specialized environment, you have to create it and then log into that one. And then that will show over here. Okay, so this is just to give you a brief overview of the first initial messages. This probably doesn't show for you guys either, like loading, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, this is also something that I set up in my own account because when I log in, I want these programs to be readily available. So Huffman has a bunch of packages that are already installed. So you don't have to install them yourself again, and you can just load them directly from Huffman. So we're going to cover how to do that as well. But here, this is just a message saying that we already loaded these packages for you and are ready to use. Okay, going back to the material. This is the initial message that you get when you log in. Once again, you have your username followed by login, some number. And here you have some information about the folder name, so the current location that you are at. And then the $sign, which is like the prompt for you to start typing. Okay. Now, I mentioned that this little squiggle means the location where you're at. The first command line that you're going to learn is that squiggle equals home. This is your home directory. Okay. Now, what does it mean to be in your home directory? This is where you learn your second command. We're going to type pwd. pwd stands for print working directory. So that means show me the directory I'm currently located in. And because I'm in my home directory, it's gonna print my home directory over here. Now, you should all have something similar, like home, the initial of your username, followed by your username, correct? Okay, so this is your home directory. Okay, I think before we continue with the material, it's time we take a break. We're going to take a 10 minutes break. Is there any questions so far? Okay. Yeah, so the first thing we did was this pwd command, which just shows you where you are at this moment. So this is to, you can think of it as a very quick intro to absolute path or relative path and what that means. So when you think of the folder structure of your operating system, of a Unix operating system, you have the root folder. You can think of it as the base of this entire structure. And the name of this folder is just a bash, as you can see. And from here, you have all these different folders, bin, root, dev, etc, root, run, so on. Of course, you don't need to know exactly what these folders are. What you need to know is that all these folders, they are what make your environment work. This is your base environment. So I already brought up this a few times about different environments and so on. But I think a good way to think of it is whenever you create a new environment, or if you want to create a new operating system, these are the bases of that operating system for it to work. A lot of these folders have just built-in functions that you use. For example, the pwd function is located in the bin folder. So when you type pwd on your command line, it's searching in these folders to see if anywhere here is the meaning of that function stored. So it knows what to show you when you type it in. Of course, in these folders, you also have a lot of like permissions information. You have a lot of programs that you need. Pretty much all the structure of the operating system. Now, we're also going to be talking about path, absolute path, and relative path. What we mean by this is if I want to move to any location within this folder structure, say I'm in this local folder over here. If I were to ask you for the absolute path, that means the entire path from the root folder, from the beginning up until local. So it will start with the dash, then followed by user, then local. That would be the absolute path. Now, relative path is in relation to where you are located right now. So say I'm currently in this user directory and I want to move to local. I don't need to type in the absolute path. I don't need to type in everything. I can just type in the relative path. So relative to user, I just need to type local and I'll move directly to that folder. So that's what it means. Let's go to the terminal and we're going to apply these concepts. So as I mentioned, right now, we're located in your home directory, and it's shown by this squiggle line. Now let's create a new directory. Let's type mkdir. So that's mkdir, and let's call it Unix _ workshop WS. Of course, you can call it whatever you want, but yeah, just to make it easier to follow along, you can call it Unix WS. And I press enter. So right now, what I'm doing here is I created a directory. I made a directory called Unix WS that is located in my home directory. Now, how can I visualize it? We're going to introduce another command called ls. ls stands for listing. So just list the files in this current directory. Okay. Now, of course, in my home directory, I already have other folders. You don't have to worry about this. But here I have the folder I just created, Unix WS. Okay, so this is the folder where I'll put all the material related to this workshop. Now, but right now I'm just listing it. How do I put a file inside this folder? So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move into this folder. Right now I'm in my home directory. So I'm gonna move into the Unix folder. And I'll do change directory or cd Unix WS. Now, the first thing you'll notice is that now we're no longer at the home directory. We are at the Unix WS directory. And the other thing that you'll notice is that in order to move to this Unix WS folder, we only typed in a relative path. So we only typed in the name of the folder because it's located right there, right? Okay, so let's go back. Now let's go back to the home directory. And the way you can go back is cd ... dash. This means go back to the previous folder. Now, that was the relative path. Now, if I ask you, how do we go to the Unix folder using the absolute path? Then how can I do that? So I know right now I'm in my local directory, and I know my local directory is this, right? I can print it again. I can do pwd, that's my local directory. And I know the Unix WS is located in my home directory as well, right? So I can do change directory. I'll copy paste. This is the home directory path. And then I'll also copy paste the Unix WS. So this time I'm moving to the Unix WS folder using the absolute path. It should give you the same result. And if I do ls in the Unix WS, nothing comes out because it's empty. We haven't put anything there yet. Okay, so these are some of the basic commands: ls, listing, cd, moving across directories, and mkdir, making folders. Okay, so I'm inside the Unix WS folder. I can make another folder. Let's say assignments. Now, if I do ls, I can see my folder assignments in there. Now, I'll go back. Now I'm back to my home directory. I can check. I can check inside the Unix WS folder, and I can see my assignments folder. I can go 2 steps at once. So I do Unix, and then I also type then assignments. Okay. So if I ask you to go from your home directory to assignments, this would be your relative path, right? I can do cd Unix. I'm going a little fast right now. You don't have to follow everything. I mean, as long as you're understanding, I'll give you then time to copy and play around. But for now, I'll prefer that you just focus on understanding what's going on. So from my home directory, I can type in the relative directory, Unix dash assignments. And now I'm in my assignments folder. Assignments folder list, it's empty. Okay, nothing to do here. So I'll just go back. So if I type this once, I'll go back to the Unix folder. And if I type it twice, I'll go back to my home folder. So with this command, you can also go back as many steps as you need. Okay. So I'll give you guys a few minutes. Maybe you want to make a note of these commands. I want you to just try going into a directory, coming out, creating new directories. Just play around a little bit so that you get used to these commands and more importantly, you know where you are at each step. Of course, it will tell you right here, but it's also important that you have an idea of the relative path. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh, right. No, it's not considered root. So the word root has multiple meanings when we're talking about Unix. The way I used it first is as the base directory. So that's one way of using the word root. Root also means that you have administrative permissions to do stuff on Hoffman. And right now, neither of us are roots. We are all users. That would be the term. Now, your home directory is just your home directory. That's the directory where you have permission to do anything you want. But you wouldn't call it root per se. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. That's a good question. And maybe the terminology is not that ideal here, but absolute path is only absolute when you start from the very beginning. When you start from -u home, only when you start from the very beginning can be considered absolute. Everything else is relative. Yeah. And right now it doesn't matter too much, but then later when we're talking about, for example, hyperlinks, or even when we submit jobs on Hoffman, then a lot of times it's better to put the absolute path. So it's important to have that distinction clear now. Yeah. So once again, absolute path only if you start from the very, very beginning, -u home, blah, blah, blah. Everything else is relative path. Okay. Okay, you had some time to play around with these functions. So far, we know pwd, just show me where I am. ls, show me everything present in this directory. Make dir, create a directory. And what else? And cd, right? Moving across directories. Okay, so hopefully now you're a bit familiar with these functions. Right now, I want you all to move to your assignments folder. Just wherever you're located right now, move to your assignments folder. Uh-huh. Oh, okay. Do you make sure the name is spelled correctly?
Yeah.
Okay. Mhm.
Yeah, so if I try to go back to I should be able to like go back.
Oh, you need space. Space. Any other question? Okay. So yeah, from wherever you are, just go to your Unix and then assignments folder and list, and you should see nothing. Well, you don't have anything there. Now in your assignments folder, let's make one more folder. Let's make a folder that is called log. Okay. Now, let's say, oh, I made a mistake. I don't actually need a folder called log. So now let's remove that folder. To remove a folder, we're gonna type rm. And rm means remove in general, but there are some special cases. So if you wanna remove files, you just type rm and that will remove it for you. If you want to remove a directory, you need to type rm-r. That will remove the directory. So I'm gonna remove log. Now, in my case, it asks me if I actually want to remove, but for you guys, it probably just removes it without warning, correct? Yeah. Now, why do we have this different? Why does it show different for me than it does for you? The next thing we're gonna do is, how can I learn about these functions? Because these functions, for example, make dir, it creates a directory, but it also has a bunch of options for creating directories. It's not just one simple straightforward function. So I want to learn more about the remove function. The way I can do that is type rm -- help. And when I do that, so the name of the function followed by help, it should give me all this documentation about the function and how to use it. So for example, if I do remove -f, it forces to remove all files without any prompt. So without asking, oh, are you sure you want to remove? If I put -f, it will just remove them, no questions asked. If I put with remove -i, this is when it actually prompts the warning. So if right now, the way I have it configured in my terminal is that rm equals rm-i. So this is something I have already set up. But a good practice is that you always do rm-i and then whatever folder you want to remove. So that when you type that, so let me go back. So say I do remove assignments, rm-i assignments. Sorry. Assignments is a folder, so I need the R. It will ask me, are you sure you want to remove it? So this is a good mechanism to not, delete things by mistake. So I'm gonna put N for no. Like, no, I don't want to delete. And my assignment folder is still there. We can look at more options. We can see we have -I. when removing recursively. Less intrusive than -I, so meaning less prompts. We have -R, this is to remove directories. -D to empty directories, and verbose. This is just how much message, how much output you want to get. So, of course, you don't need right now to be familiar with all these options. Right now, what I just want you to focus on is this RM, with the --help option, so that you can learn about every function. We can learn about make dir. See, I have these options. I can set a file mode. So this has to do with the permissions. How to deal if I make a directory, but the directory already exists. All these special cases. Now, what if this is not enough help? Another function that you can use to get more documentation is MAN. This stands for manual. So let's do man make dir. Similar as before, but this should have more extensive details on the functions. Make dir, make directories. Okay. Okay, so we talked. Any questions so far? Okay, so we learned a little bit about how to move across directories, how to create and eliminate different directories. Now, what about individual files? How do we create text files? We're going to start with something simpler. We're going to start with an actual line of code. And we're going to use this function, echo. So this is a Unix operating system, and echo is a line of the bash coding language. So the language that we use to speak to our Unix system is called bash. In bash, echo means print. Just print the following message. So I'm going to do echo quotation marks, hello world. And it should print that message. So the echo function is to print text, okay? But now what's the point of that? Why would I just want to print something in the terminal? The reason for one of the utilities, one of the functions of this line is that we can print directly into a file. So I can do, for example, echo hello world. Now I'm going to use this symbol. This symbol means direct. Like we want to direct the output to somewhere. So hello world, and I'm going to put it into assignment 1. Assignment.1.text. Okay. Now you can see this time it didn't print on the command line, but this hello world text is in this file. Now, if I do ls, I can see, oh, now I created this file. And this file contains this hello world text. Okay. And because this is an assignment, I should move this assignment file into the assignments folder, right? So for that, I'm going to use mv, that means move, assignment 1 to the assignments folder. Now I do ls, I have assignments, I do ls assignments, and I have my assignment 1. Okay, now that was a little bit fast. Let me go back. To look for help, you have the help option for every function. Here we introduce a new function called echo, which is just a printing function. It just prints text. Here I'm printing text and I'm directing the output into this assignment file. So this time we're working with files and not folders. And now I'm moving this file into the assignments folder. Okay, so I'll give you guys a few minutes, 3 minutes for you to copy this, to perform these lines of code. Okay. Now let me ask you guys something. I'm currently in my, as you can see, I'm in my Unix folder. I do ls and I see my assignments folder. So what are the steps for me to remove this assignments.1.txt file? What should I do first? So remember, this file is in the assignments folder. If I want to remove that file, what steps should I do first? Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Change the directory. Now here I have my assignments, and then I can do remove assignments. Well, I'm not going to actually remove it, but yeah, correct. Now, I'm currently in my assignments folder. What steps should I make to create a log folder in the home directory? Anyone? Yeah, that's it. Go back to the home directory. How do I go back? Yeah, so this is one way of going directly to the home directory, the squiggle line, cd squiggle line, and I go back to the home directory. Another way is I can go step by step. cd, this means going back. I go back to Unix, cd back to the home directory. So there are multiple ways. Okay, now I'm in my home directory and I can create my log folder. But okay, say I change my mind and now I go back to Unix assignment. How do I do it more straightforward? So when you create a directory, you can also put the full path or the relative path of the directory you want to create. So if I want to create a log folder in my home directory, but I'm currently in assignments, I can do make dir squiggle line. This means home dash log. So instead of moving and creating the folder, I can create the folder without moving at all. Okay, and now if I go to my home directory, I should have my log folder over here. Now, same thing. If I want to, right now I'm in the assignments folder. I'm gonna go back to Unix. Okay, what if I want to create my second assignment, but I don't want to have to move back and forth across directories? I can do the same thing, echo, I don't know, goodbye. And I'm going to direct this to assignments and homework, oh no, assignments. I'm gonna call it assignment 2 text. So see, for the printing function, I can also redirect the output directly to the source, to the destination that you want. So you learn how to move across folders, but then a lot of times you can also perform functions directly without having to move so much back and forth. Okay. So I'll give you guys, let's say 2 minutes to type down your assignment 2. Okay, are we all done? Okay, great. So now a quick tip to make things faster, to speed it up, is, okay, what if I ask you to make your assignment 3, but instead of typing goodbye, just type goodbye friend. You could type everything again, right? But one quicker way would be just press the arrow, the up arrow, and it will show you your previous command that you typed. So instead of writing everything, I'm just gonna move my cursor here. I'm gonna type friend. And instead of directing it to assignment 2, I'm gonna direct it to assignment 3. Okay. So that way I created a new assignment much faster. I don't need to type the same code over and over. Just use the up arrows and the down arrow to scroll through your history of commands. And then you can just edit previous commands the way you like. See, I'm pressing up, so I'm seeing everything that I typed before. Okay, I went too far and I want to come back. I want to see the more recent, pressing the arrow down. All the way until the end. See, now that I reach the final command, it won't show me nothing else. So that's one tip to speed things up. Another one is, you see the word assignments, it's kind of long, right? And it's a little annoying to type assignments every time. So I can do, if I want to move to the assignment folder, I can do CD. I can press A, the first letter, and then just tab. The tab key will autocomplete. So I don't need to type assignments every time. Just the first letter and then tab, and it will show me. Now, inside the assignments folder, I have 3 files, right? Assignment 1, 2, and 3. All 3 files start with the same word, the word assignment. So say if I want to delete one of these, I will do remove A, and then I type tab. It would autocomplete up until the point where they are the same. So up until assignment dot. And from here I can specify, okay, I want to delete assignment 1, and then tab again, and it will autocomplete. So it's smart enough to autocomplete up to the point where there are differences. And then you can type in the specific file that you want and tab again. That if there is no more commonalities in the between the names of the files. Okay. Now, now with these tricks, with these tips, now you should be able to navigate everything pretty quick. So I want to go back, CD. Okay, go back to home directory. Go to the Unix assignments list. Okay, I want to only list assignment 1. And there we go. Of course, it takes practice, but at this point, one of the objectives of this workshop is that you feel comfortable navigating through these files. Any questions? Okay. So far we talked about moving between files, creating folders and so on. Now, how about editing files? What if I want to see what's inside the files or I want to change it? We have 3 assignment files over here. So for this, everybody should move to the assignments folder. And here you have your 3 assignments files. Now, how can I read them? There are multiple commands for reading. Let's start with the most basic one. Let's do more and assignment 1. So the command more, it will open the file and print everything that was inside that file. So if I do more assignment 1, you see the hello world message. Okay. Now, this is one way of reading a file, but of course, what if your file has thousands and millions of lines, right? You don't want to print everything and then scroll wherever. The alternative to more is less. So I'll do the same thing, less assignment 1. Now, you see this is a little different. Instead of printing into the same prompt, into the same command line, it now takes me to this, screen where it's completely empty, and it only shows the output or the content of the file. So the idea of using the less command is that it takes you into a new screen. Here you can easily scroll back and forth. And when you're tired of reading, you just press Q and you go back to your command line. Okay? So let me repeat that. When I do more, I print everything, all the content right here. When I do less, it takes me into a new screen where I can see the content. Now, personally, I always read files with less. It's a lot easier. Here I can scroll back and forth without seeing my previous commands. And when I'm tired or when I'm done reading this file, I just press Q and I go back to the command line. Okay. So 2 ways of reading files. Now, what if I want to edit it? What if I want to change something? Let's read the other files. Let's see, assignment 2. Okay, assignment 2 only says goodbye, and assignment 3 says goodbye, friend. Okay, so let's edit assignment 2. Now, to edit files, the default text editor that is already installed into your Unix system is called Vim, V-I-M. And the way you access is with the VI command. So VI means VI followed by the file name. It means open this file using this text editor. Now, this is the part where it gets a little tricky because once you use Vim, Vim has its own language to do things. So before we jump into that, right now, what we're doing with less, more, cd, make clear, and all of that, those are bash command lines. Okay, so that's a language that is used in the Unix system called bash. Now, when we use Vim, Vim has its own operators. It's not quite like a programming language. It's not quite like that. It's a lot simpler, but it is its own set of rules from bash. Okay, so I just want to make that distinction. Now, for the purposes of this workshop, we're only gonna do very simple, straightforward things with Vim, so you don't have to worry too much about that. But I just wanted to make sure that's clear, so it's not confusing. Okay, so we have VI assignment 2, press enter, and now it takes me to a new screen, right? Similar to when we do less. Now, what do I want to do? I want to insert text. So if you want to insert, you first start pressing the key I. So the letter I. And you see down here, now it says insert. So that means that now I can type in anything I want. So goodbye, I'll press enter, and I'll put see you soon. Okay, so I'm done editing. Now, how do I save this into the file? This is where it becomes more complicated. I'll press escape and then colon. You can see the colon here. WQ and enter. So what just happened? Let me do it over again. I want to edit this file. So I do VI assignment 2. Now, when you use the Vim editor, you should be looking at this lower corner. Right now, it just shows me that the file is open. Okay, I want to edit it. I want to insert new text. So I press the I key. Now it says insert. Now I'm free to type whatever I want. Okay, now I want to save and close this file. When I type escape, you see now it's blank, right? So now I'm free to do something else other than inserting. So I want to save and exit. I type colon W, this means save. So with this, I'm saving what I've written. And then Q, this means quit. So colon WQ, and now I can close the file. Now I do more, assignment 2. Now I can see all the content that I added. Okay. We have this also in the slides. Let me find it. Here we have the Vim editor. So you press I for new text, escape to jump out of the insertion mode. And W means write, Q means quit. WQ together, write and quit. And Q exclamation mark, force quit. Okay, so I'll give you guys a few minutes. I want you to edit assignment 3. Right now, assignment 3 it only says goodbye friend. So I want you to go into assignment 3 and add a new line of text. You can say whatever you want, but add a new line. And I'll leave this as a reminder. Now, because Vim is confusing, let me just do it one more time so you can see all the steps, and then you can do it, okay? So VI, assignment 2, enter. I press I. Now I'm in the insert mode. I'll go here. I'll add the new line. Now I press escape. See, now it cleared the mode. And I press colon WQ, so write and save, or sorry, write and quit. Now I exit Vim, and now I do more assignment 2, and I can see what I wrote, okay? So now I'll give you 2 minutes to do the same thing for assignment 3. Just go in, write a new line, and exit. Any questions so far? Now, some of you may be wondering why is it so difficult to edit things on the command line, right? Or is there any option to Vim? And there are. Actually, most of the time when you're working with a command line or where you are writing code and submitting jobs, most of the time you need an IDE, so a user interface. What I use is Visual Code Studio. Now, the way this works is that you can install these interfaces, and then you can connect them to Huffman. And from here, you can, so say I'm working on this piece of code. This is just a regular text editor. Here, I don't need escape, IW, neither of that. It's just, I can just type my code and save it just like you would type a Microsoft Word file. So once you start doing more complex scripts, jobs, it'll be better that you have a proper text editor and not rely on Vim. Vim is useful because sometimes you need to modify some of the environmental files that you don't always get to modify from this interface. Sometimes you don't have time, or sometimes it's just a lot easier to make a quick change in the command line than going through your editor. So it's better to use Vim. Vim is good for convenience and when you need to do something quick in the command line. But if you're writing proper code with a lot of lines, then it's better to use a text editor. Now, on the third day, when we talk about submitting jobs to Huffman, I'm also going to talk about how to connect your text editor to Huffman so that you can type all your code more easily. Okay. Are we all done with the assignment? Great. So it's 3:20. We're going to take a 10 minutes break. Yeah, I just wanted to share this meme with you guys. This is quite well known, I guess, you're familiar with Stack Overflow and all these like computing forums that people find it really hard to exit Vim, which is hopefully what you guys just did for your assignment. But yeah, in terms of file manipulation, I think we've pretty much covered most of the basics. There are probably just a few more details that we can go through right now. For example, I asked you to create one more line for assignment 3, right? I trust you've all done that. If I were to ask you to, I don't know, just submit or write an assignment 4 that has the exact same content from assignment 3 or with minimal changes, what would be the fastest way of doing that? Any ideas? Yeah. Yeah, that's a smart approach. Yeah. So just more assignment 3 and then assignment 4, right? And yeah, this will work. So yeah, assignment 4 says goodbye friend, the same as assignment 3. So that's a very quick way. We can do it more straightforward with the copy command. This is one pretty straightforward, just copy from source to destination. And I'll do the same thing. Assignment 3 to assignment 4. Now, this is another concept that I should clarify. So here I already created assignment 4 and it already has content. And here I just use another command where I'm using assignment 4 as the destination file. So what do you expect to see in assignment 4 now? Do you expect to see goodbye friend twice, 1 time, or 0 times? Any ideas? Who says 1 time? Okay. This is 2 times. Okay. 0 times? Nobody? Yeah. Yeah, so this is what we call overriding. So if you're using the same file as output for multiple commands, it just erases what was already written and then writes the new output. So yeah, assignment 4 will have 1 line. Should be the same as before, goodbye friend. So in my experience, what I've seen is that a lot of rookie mistakes that we've all made is you write your function, you write a loop so that you repeat your function a lot of times, but you send the output to the same file. So instead of generating a lot of different outputs, which is what you need, you're just overwriting the same file over and over, which is, of course, not what you want, and it's a waste of computational resources. So always be mindful of what you're redirecting your output to. In this case, the copy command is pretty straightforward. Copy source and destination. That's it. So I'm copying assignment 3 into assignment 4. Okay. Now another thing is we talked about the ls command. So this just lists all the files in the current directory. But there are more variations to ls that we can play with. For example, what if I want to see which of these files is the most recent one? Which one was created the latest? So I can do ls -t. Now this -t, this is sorting the files by time. So you see your assignment 4 comes first, followed by assignment 2, which is the one I modified the latest, assignment 3, and then assignment 1. Now notice that assignment 3, here I'm doing stuff with assignment 3, I'm doing more, and I'm copying and all of that. But none of this really changes anything about assignment 3. When you print the file, you're not changing anything about the file, right? And here, this time sorting indicates it's sorting the files by the latest modification time of the file. So if I were to modify assignment 3 right now, I'm just gonna add something, exclamation mark. And now I do LST. Now I have assignment 3 at the beginning, followed by assignment 4, 2, and 1. So you can list your files. You can also list them in order. We can explore some more functions. For example, I can do ls -a. This -a means all. And this will just give you a comprehensive list of all the files that are present. But how is that different from the regular ls? So there is something called hidden files. Right now, we shouldn't have any hidden file in our directory. But sometimes, say you download some software, and then you have the folder with the software. But then together with the software, you have a bunch of hidden files. This could be like configuration files, log files, or history files. Files are not necessary for you to use the software, but it's just additional information about the software. And when you do ls-a, all those hidden files would show. In our case, the only thing that is showing is this dot and then 2 dots. And if you remember, 2 dots just means previous directory. So it's just showing you that from this directory, you can pretty much go to a previous directory. And then the dot is just a notation to indicate the current directory. It's not something that's going to be super useful right now. Maybe we'll apply it tomorrow at some point. But if you do ls dot, it's the same as doing ls by itself. It will list the current directory. Now, we can do something like ls-lt. Now, this listing gives you a lot more information. It gives you 1 file per row. It gives you the modification times. So here you have January 6th and the date that we modify these files. In my case, I have my username followed by my group, my Hoffman group. So for most of you, your group name would be your PI's name, right? This over here indicates like file size. And this would be the most important one. These are your permissions. So this string over here indicates pretty much who has access to these files. So if you remember, we all have a folder that is -home and then initial and then followed by your username, right? Let's see. Does anybody here want to share their username? Just to try it out? Yeah. Sorry, so what's the first letter? N, and then? NJ. Okay. NJC? 20702. So that's right? Okay. So when I try to go to your directory, it tells me permission denied. Because the way Hoffman works is that only for these personal directories, you are the only one who can access your own files. I can see them, I can edit them, I can do anything. Now, if you're part of a group, the way it usually works is that you can see files for other members of your group, but you cannot edit them. So I can see what files other people have, but I cannot touch them. I cannot modify them. So what if I'm collaborating with you and I want you to share some files with me? I want you to enable access for me. In order to do that, we'll need to change this string. We need to change the permission settings for each file. Now, going back, so when it comes to file permission, as we see, we have a string over here that has R, W, and dashes. So what does it all mean? The very first letter indicates the file type, whether this is a directory or a folder, or dash if it's just a regular file. And then you can group the following based on 3 letters. So every 3 letters, it will be a different layer of permission. So the first 3 are for the owner. So that means the user itself, so yourselves. Group, like I mentioned, if you're part of a research group and your Hoffman account is under that group, then your group is your research group. And others, which in the Hoffman case, it will indicate pretty much any other Hoffman user or anybody with access to Hoffman accounts. And then each group has 3 letters, R, W, and X. So you can see that it either has those letters or a dash, right? So you can think of it as on or off based on what permission is activated for each particular file. So for example, over here we see, first we start with a dash, so that's a regular file. Then for the owner, we have R, W, and dash. So what does it mean? Owner can read. It can also write, but in this case, it cannot execute. What does the second group mean? R dash dash. So the group can read your file, but cannot write and cannot execute. And others can read, but cannot write and cannot execute. So this is how you read these permissions. Now, read a file is something like doing less plus the file name or more, which is something we already practiced. Now, what is writing? Writing would be editing the file. So something like with the Vim editor or using one of these interfaces. Now, what is executing the file? Any ideas? What does this X mean? What does it mean to execute a file? Run a script. Yeah, pretty much. So right now we only have files with text. They don't do anything. But if I were to create a very quick Python script, and the Python script is only printing something. See, executing would be like running this script. This is execution. So by default, most files don't have executing permission just because it doesn't make sense to execute them. Like it doesn't make sense to execute a text file, right? So it's just by default not given the execution permission. A lot of times, like these Python files, they already have an execution built in. Let me see. Oh, this one seems like it doesn't have. But a lot of times for these Python files, this time is able to run, but a lot of times they don't run if they don't have the execution command. So what's common is that you have to give it. So I have to give it the execution command to Python, so that to my Python script, so that if I do this, now I see it has an X, right? Compared to what it was before. So you can see that as a user, you are free to change these different levels of permissions. Let me see. Now, what I did here, this change mod, this is the function that you use to change the level of permission. And here I'm using a plus X. So that means I'm adding the execution permission. Now, in general, we have that if you want to add the reading permission, you can do a plus R, the writing permission plus W, and the execution permission plus X, which is what I did. Now, you can use the letters or you can use numbers. For reading is 4, writing is 2, and execution is 1. Now, the good thing about adding using numbers is that you can add them together. So what if I want to give all the permissions together? So reading, writing, and executing. So you just sum 4, 2, and 1, that's 7, right? Now that would be the first 7. So that's you yourself giving yourself all the permissions, which sounds silly, sounds redundant, but sometimes, like by default, not all the files have permissions, so you have to enable permissions. Now, what if you type something like 744 this is the permissions across all levels. So 7 for the owner permission, 4 for the group permission, and 4 for the other permissions. So that means you as the owner are free to do everything. Your group is 4, so that means your group can read, and others can also just read. That's what 744 means. Now, what if I do 777? What does that permission mean? Yeah. Yeah, pretty much. Write, read, and execute. So that's the most lenient layer of permission, where you're just allowing 777 means you're allowing everybody to do anything to your files, which of course is a security risk. And it's something that you can also tell based on this string over here. So in this case, because with either of you, me and you were not in the same Hoffman group, then if I wanted to share a file with you guys, or you wanted to share a file with me, you'll have to change the specific file permission to pretty much the others level. So because me in relation to you, I'm in this others category. I'm not the owner of your accounts. I'm not in your group, but I am a Hoffman user. So that would be one way of sharing files across users. Of course, there are other ways that are more convenient than that. If you are a Hoffman user, you should all have a Scratch folder. So you Scratch initial and then username. So can you all go to this directory with your own usernames? Yours is probably gonna be empty. Yeah. You all have that? So it's empty or there's no folder? Yeah. Yeah, but the folder exists. Okay, so if you do CD, use Scratch, and then your initial, and then ls, can you find your username? Really? Can anybody find the Scratch folder? You see yours? Anybody else? You see yours? Do you get your account also through your research group? Oh, you found it. Okay, great. Yeah, so this Scratch folder is a mechanism that Hoffman has enabled for users to share files with each other as well, without having to change your permissions. This is a folder that everybody has access to. So we all have access to your Scratch folder. Let me go back to. So I wasn't able to go into your home directory, but I'm gonna try your Scratch directory. Oh, yours has permission denied. You change your permissions? Okay, let me check your permissions for the Scratch folder. But this is the path to your Scratch folder, correct? Okay. Scratch. Well, let's try somebody else. Somebody's want to share the username. Okay. Sorry, spell that. Lee Guevara, like that? Oh, V. Okay, sorry. Like that? Okay. Oh, that one's denied. Let me try my own. Yeah, because mine has read and executable permissions for everybody. It seems I'm not able to see yours. Yeah, look, yours is different from everybody else's. Uh, no, not bad. Just can collaborate with you. Well, and let me go back to yours. It was you mind telling me yours again? NC, what was after that? Oh, NJC, just okay. Okay, let's just try NJ. Yeah, yours is also different. Yours is like this as well? Okay. Yeah, I see. Because every collaborator I had on campus, we have the read and execute permission, but I don't know, maybe are you guys more probably new users is different, I'm assuming. Right. Okay. Oh, really? Okay. Well, yeah, so if you want to share across campus, you need to change this permission so people can share files with you guys. Yeah. I was really not anticipating that, but well, you learn something every day, I guess. Um, but yeah, this is the levels of permissions. And once again, if you want to change the permission, you use the change mod function. And the maybe to make it more systematic and more consistent on the number system. So the number that you want for yourself, most of the time 7. The number for your group, and the number for others. So 744 is pretty standard. And then followed by the name of your directory or file that you want to change the permission of. So you don't have to be on the Scratch folder. You can do something like use Scratch and then your folder. Like that. Oh, so if you're in the Scratch, you can do dot. So that means current folder. Yeah. Or you can, always go one step back and then do it with the folder name. Yeah. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay, so I think we've done pretty well. We've done, let's see. Listing, manipulating files, ls. Permissions. Yeah, of course, in your slides, you have more details about all of this. Yes. Okay. Yeah, so I think we cover all the materials. There is only a few things that I should mention. So let me go back to my home directory. As you can see, you can just press enter any number of times and you'll get a new line. So you're not doing anything. But if you have already typed a lot before, or you have like very long output like this, one convenient command is clear. So you clear all the previous commands. And the good thing about clear is that you have a clean screen, but you can still scroll back to your previous lines of code. So you don't lose the history. Okay. Another command that is also quite convenient is the touch command. So let me go back to the Unix. So the best way to describe the touch command is just it's a command that doesn't really do anything. Doesn't it doesn't alter your files in any way other than the modification time. So your files, the content of your files will remain the same, but when you do touch plus file name, you are changing the modification time for that file. Now, you may be wondering, what's the point of that? How is that any useful? So there are programs, there is software out there that it will, for example, look for the files that are the most recent and use those files as input, just as default behavior for the software. So if you want to change the modification files of your files, the modification time of your files, instead of adding random modifications, you can just touch that file and it will change the modification time. Another thing that is useful and something I learned also from my collaborator is that the Scratch folder that you use to share files is a temporary storage. So you have a certain amount of storage that you can only keep for a certain amount of time. I believe a few weeks or maybe a month, something like that. So, and if it's inactive, it will just delete them because you're not using those files. A collaborator has a script that every now and then would just touch all his Scratch files so that they appear active, so they won't get erased. So that's another good use of that function. Sometimes you may want to just create an empty file that you'll modify later. So you can also use touch new file, and then you'll create a new empty file. So those are just some of the convenient commands that you should know. Now, there is also some warnings that come with this, with all the new commands that you learned today. The first warning I already mentioned with the permissions. You don't want to put 777 to all your files or very important files in your directory, right? Especially if you're doing research, your PI may want to keep certain information only to your lab, only to your group. So you should be mindful about the permissions that you give each file. That's one thing. The other thing is with the remove command. Now, I mentioned before that my remove command is a little different from yours because what I did was this: alias remove equals remove I. So what that means is that whenever I type remove, in reality it's doing remove I. So this is just as a security measure so that whenever I delete something, I make sure it always prompts me to ask, are you sure you want to remove that thing? Okay. I think you have to put this in quotation marks, something like that. Yeah. Another thing to be mindful of is, well, in Hoffman, you don't have root access, so you don't have permission to modify any of the very important files that we talked about. Let me just go back. Yeah, so remember I mentioned that every Unix operating system has this architecture, right? This has all the components needed for you to pretty much for your computer to work. Now, in the Hoffman users, we don't have access. We can see these folders, but we cannot modify them, right? Because we're not root users. But in your own laptops, in your personal computers, you are root users. So you don't want to accidentally delete one of these files, right? You don't want to do rm dash because that removes everything. And because it's your laptop, you are root, you could do that. So this is just a very strong don't do rm dash because you will remove everything. Just make sure that when you're removing something, that file is, that's a file that is present in your current directory and you're not touching any of these important folders. I think there was a meme some years ago about delete systems 32 from Windows. Is anybody familiar with that? Yeah, well, maybe I'm too old, but yeah, it was pretty much people were sharing like this image in your Windows computer, go to the terminal and type remove systems 32, and it will like enhance the speed of your computer. It will give you some fake advice, but in reality, what it's doing, it was eliminating the folders of the of the root folder, pretty much rendering their computers useless. So yeah, don't delete systems 32 or the root folder. So in the case of Hoffman, we have -u. That U is for users. And then within the users, there is a home directory. So Hoffman is slightly different from this because it's a cluster. This is more the architecture of a standard Unix machine like your laptop, for example. Yeah, of course, everything here is going to be centered around Hoffman, but let me log out of Hoffman. I can do exit and I log out. So right now I'm no longer in Hoffman, I'm in my own laptop and I can do the same things. So in my laptop, it's not you, it's users. So it's slightly different, but you can see it's the same idea. The U in Hoffman stands for users as well. Yeah. And everything that you applied on Hoffman, it should be translatable to your own computer, given that all of you have MacBooks. Okay. That's the material for today. Now, before I let you go, there was one more thing about file transfer. So none of you have Windows, right? So you don't we don't need that part. But we're also going to talk about just transferring files back and forth from your computer to Hoffman and the other way. So by tomorrow, make sure you have CyberDuck installed. So this program over here. Now the instructions to install that is on the slides too, I believe. Well, there is no installation. The installation is fairly straightforward. You just Google CyberDuck and install, like you would install anything else. But then once you have CyberDuck, here you have instructions on how to connect it to Hoffman. So before tomorrow's session, just make sure you have this installed. And we're gonna do some quick exercises about file transfer. Okay. Well, that's all for today. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Mm-hmm.